Welcome. This is Ask the Compound. I'm your host, Ben Carlson. Last week, Congress officially passed new tax legislation, the big, beautiful bill. I guess we have to brand everything these days. What does it mean for your tax dollars? Do you pay more? Do you pay less? Do you pay the same? We will be answering that question and more on today's show. Stick around, please. You ask, we answer. Our email here is askthecompoundshow@gmail.com. On today's show, we answer questions about a guy in his 30s who has 50% of his money in CDs. He's a CPA, a little conservative, wants to know if he's too conservative. Will most people notice a difference in their taxes after the passing of the big, beautiful tax bill? How do the new $1,000 baby accounts work? They were around when I had kids. I had 3 of them, right? How much should you have saved by your 30s, 40s, 50s? Those usual milestones. And let's say you pay little to no income taxes because your income level is too low. You have a lot of deductions. Does a Roth or traditional make more sense? We'll have our favorite tax expert on the show today to answer. Always ready to take questions from the live chat on YouTube or Twitter, so everyone feel free to fire away. We're on it. All right. Today's show sponsored by Public. You can build multi-asset portfolios of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and more at public.com. You can also access industry-leading yields like 4.1% API they can earn on your cash with no fees or minimums. But what sets Public apart? AI isn't just a feature, it's woven into the entire experience, from portfolio insights to earnings calls, recaps. Public gives you smarter context at every touch point. Michael and I recently talked to co-founder of Public, Life Abraham, last week about what's coming next, and it's a very impressive platform. The stuff that he was telling us about, it's very, very cool. They've got a lot of cool stuff coming. AI is going to be integrated in all this with investment strategies and portfolio management. Really cool stuff coming in terms of customization. Plus, for a limited time, you can earn 1% match on all IRA deposits, IRA transfers, and 401k rollovers. Fund your account in 5 minutes or less. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in the podcast description. Go to public.com/ATC to learn more. Duncan, let's do it.
All right. I was about to say, I saw that they were doing a transfer bonus. Those always catch my eye, so.
Yeah, it's like credit card hacking, right?
Yeah, kind of.
All
right. Up first today, we've got one with no name.
This was an anonymous one, he said.
Okay, anonymous. For good reason. I understand. A lot of information here. I just turned 36 this week, own a condo in Boston with a remaining mortgage of $395,000, 50% equity, at 2.5% interest, retirement accounts just over $630,000, and currently have $480,000 in 5.25%, no fee, 12-month CDs. I hate the fact that I have this much cash in CDs, especially after seeing what the S&P did last year. I know stocks are the better investment, but putting another $500,000 in the S&P or VOO would concern me. As a CPA, am I being too risk averse? Should I just put it in the S&P, or should I sleep soundly at night with 5.25%? No big plans to purchase a home, investment property in the short term, but would like to eventually buy a place in the burbs. Average price, $1.3 million north of Boston, but not looking forward to that commute anytime soon. That's not bad. I would have thought the houses were more expensive there. Like here in Connecticut, in the suburbs of New York City, kind of ish, I guess. I mean, I feel like a lot of the places are more expensive than that.
It's kind of funny that $1 million is now considered like, that's not that bad. Right?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
To me, yeah, that we've just upped the ceiling, I guess. A lot going on with this question, obviously. First of all, for someone in their mid-30s, this person is in a very good place financially speaking. I guess it helps that they're a CPA. Almost $400,000 in home equity, a 2.5% mortgage rate. I'm sure they don't want to give up. $1 million in savings between retirement and CDs, but more than 40% essentially sitting in cash in these CDs. So he's well aware of the money he's leaving on the table by keeping so much in CDs, because he is self-pronounced conservative by nature, which again makes sense because he's a CPA by profession. The big risk here, of course, is reinvestment risk. Now, this question I think is a little older. I found this one in the old ones, and I do like to say thank you to all the people. I feel like people share more information with us and their finances than they probably do with their families and friends, right? This is a safe space here, right? We're in the circle of trust, that sort of thing. So this is a little older question. I think I found it in the archives. So is he still getting 5.25% in CDs? Probably not. But let's say he's still getting 4.5% in 12-month CDs. Probably not bad. That reinvestment risk is the biggest one, right? If the Fed lowers rates more, and it sounds like Trump wants to make that happen the second Jerome Powell is out the door, right? He turns in his key card to the Fed building, and interest rates immediately go lower. I think that's how it works. Would you still feel comfortable in those CDs if the yields were 3%, maybe 2% or 1% in a recession, right? If you're banking on that sweet 5% to last for the foreseeable future, you're sadly mistaken, especially in CDs. Now, he also mentioned maybe buying a place in Boston suburbs at some point in time. So maybe there's a timeline in mind. Say, I don't know, 5 years, I'm ready to move out of the city, move to the burbs. Maybe it's more than 1.3 million at that point, maybe less. So maybe you keep some money in that 12-month CD, but maybe you put some money in a 3-year treasury or corporate bond and some in a 5-year. So you're extending your duration a little bit to lock in the current yields in case they do fall, right? That would help your reinvestment risk. You build sort of your own ladder. You can do that with bond funds as well. I guess my question would be, is this 40+% in CDs a yield thing or a risk preference thing? If you're simply prefer a more balanced portfolio, we talked about this last week, someone asked, can young people have more balanced portfolio? I can get behind that as long as you understand the trade-offs. And you just say, I'm a conservative investor. I don't like to take that much risk. This is good enough for me. I get that I'm giving up higher expected returns, but I have more stability. But I think if you're completely unsure what to do and you just have that money there because you can't make a decision, should I put more money in stocks? Should I buy an investment property? Should I do something else? Should I, if you're experiencing some of that paralysis by analysis and would like a second opinion on your allocation and risk profile, then talk to an advisor, right? You have enough money where these decisions become a burden to some people. I think one of the best things that an advisor can do for you is help you define your goals, your allocations, and then help match your risk profile to your time horizon. So no one is ever completely sure about their financial plan because the future is always and forever unknowable. But if you're constantly second guessing your own investment stance or decisions, like talking to a professional can help. As a CPA, I'm sure this person has dealt with a lot of advisors. And if not, we have plenty of advisors at Ritholtz Wealth just standing by to discuss these types of questions. So I think you've got to figure out like what is the actual reason you have that so much cash in the first place.
What is the argument to have CDs instead of just like a treasury ETF or something?
I guess you can probably get a little higher. The great thing about CDs is that there is no interest rate risk. You can lock them in, right? Lock those rates in, even though it's only for 12 months. The downside, I guess, is that you lack the flexibility and liquidity. But most CDs come with a penalty where if you want to get out of it early because you get higher rates somewhere else, you can just pay the lockup. You essentially give up some of your interest as a penalty.
But do CDs get any kind of preferential tax treatment like treasuries?
You're still paying the income. So it's not, you're right. It's not, it's trade-offs, pros and cons. Some people prefer CDs for some reason still.
Yeah, I've always been confused by CDs because often the high yield savings accounts at banks are, just a couple of basis points away from the CDs.
Yeah, and more flexible. I tend to agree. I think the high yield savings account, just the flexibility that when I transfer money out of my high yield savings account, it hits my bank account like the same or next day. It's very quick. It's easy. I think some people just like the CD, like you're locking it in for some period of time. And I'm sure if you went out, like I said, 3 to 5 years, the yields are much, much lower because of that. So that's why I think if he wants to lock in higher yields, then bonds are probably a better deal now. But yeah, I think you probably do have to have a look in the mirror and figure out, am I good with this 40% allocation to conservative investments for the long term because I'm going to do something with it, or do I need to have a talk with someone about, figuring out a plan to get it invested? Good problem to have, obviously. This is our first not to brag of the day, I think.
Yeah, good not to brag.
All right. Next one.
Up next, we got one from Andrew. Need to hear from Big Beautiful Bill Sweet on the Big Beautiful Bill. I'm trying to wrap my head around the changes here. I know there's a lot going on, but isn't the biggest thing just an extension of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act tax cuts? Will most people notice a difference in their tax rate?
Okay. Look, I love a good play on words as much as the next guy, so let's bring on Big Beautiful Bill here.
Hey, Bill.
Like a genie. You say my name 3 times and I appear.
That's right. I look for your name in the doc every week, and there's plenty of Bill Sweet. So I know that you've been holed up for the past 4 or 5 days, poring over every word.
It's true.
That's why I have a beard now.
Very patriotic. Yeah.
Or at the
July
very
4th.
least, you've been running this through ChatGPT, right?
Like everyone
one or the
else.
other.
Guilty.
Obviously, your individual circumstances are going to dictate how this new tax legislation impacts your household. But if we had to overgeneralize, are most people not going to feel much of an impact? Like, what percent of the population? And I kind of agree here. I think I asked you about this for me. I said, Bill, am I going to notice personally any differences? And you said, no, it's pretty much going to be the same for you. So is Andrew right here? Is this just an extension more or less, and then the changes are on the edges for most people?
Yeah, I've got to give my shouts to big, beautiful Andrew because he nailed it. The 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, Ben, was a hoot. We temporarily repealed personal exemptions. We temporarily boosted the standard deduction, and we temporarily decreased tax rates. And all those temporary changes were now made permanent with this thing. So for me, I would totally agree, Andrew, this thing kind of a snoozer. Your tax return is probably going to look a lot in 2025 like it did in 2024 with a couple of important changes that you probably heard of. So Ben, like what's the most popular thing that you're aware of in this bill?
I don't know. You tell me.
Okay, great, let's do it. So can we chart on and we'll go through them one by one. So yeah, in terms of cost, Andrew's onto something. The lower individual tax rates are scheduled to cost us about $2.1 trillion over the next 10 years, which is a long budget window. So that's certainly the biggest.
But that's
biggest
just
one
the
at
difference
top.
between what it would have been if they would have gone back to their pre-2017 levels, right?
That's 100% correct, yes.
Yeah.
And the only problem with that is we're already running a $2 trillion deficit, right? So lowering tax rates while in a deficit, probably not great for your federal balance sheet. That said, a couple of other things were added that I think are kind of fun, Andrew, that I'd point to you to share with your friends and family. Increased standard deduction, super fun. Ben, I'm sure you heard of this no tax on Social Security thing, maybe with your senior, maybe with your parents, grandparents, things like that. Has that even bubbled up on their radar?
I'm sure it has. Maybe the baby boomers are trying to keep it quiet. So
Keep it under wraps so there's not a riot. Yeah, but that takes the form of an enhanced senior deduction. There is still tax on Social Security, but folks over 65 get an enhanced senior deduction. But don't worry, if you have children, there's an enhanced child tax credit that increased by about 10%. Estate taxes get a boost, and there's a bunch of other stuff on that list. But I would say the most salacious, the most exciting, the most fun ones, Mr. Drew, are exemption for tax on overtime. Subject to certain income limits, up to $25,000 a year. No tax on cash tips, so this is a very important thing.
And this is mostly for lower income folks, right?
Correct. Yeah, you need to be making less than $70,000 a year in order to enjoy the benefits of tax on tips. But Ben, is it possible that not everybody has been reporting their cash tips all these years? We're going to find out.
Listen, hand up. When I was a busboy, my very first job, I didn't report anything.
Yes.
Right. I didn't report those cash tips.
It's capped at 25,000, right?
Correct. Yes, that's correct. Yes, capped at 25,000. And so
and
probably.
On that note, I have a question for you. I know
sir.
people always joke that people don't report their tips, but aren't they really just hurting themselves from a Social Security standpoint?
That's a great question. And Duncan, the interesting thing about this is probably, if you take my theory that a lot of cash tips were probably not showing up on a tax return anyway, this incentivizes people to report them, to your point, for Social Security taxes. But do you know what the total Social Security tax on those tips might be? It's about 15.3% versus like 12% of the income tax. So it will be interesting to see people potentially actually going out of pocket for this thing, right? If they weren't reporting them in the past, which would be kind of funny if people end up picking up a 3% extra tax. But let me just finish my spiel here. No tax on overtime, no tax on tips for lower income folks, no tax on automobile interest, which is just completely wild because I don't think that we have a borrowing problem here. But you go down the line, there is something just basically for everybody.
Wait, so
here.
that one, is that new auto loans?
Yeah, new auto loans, U.S. only, up to $10,000 a year, and you have to be making less than $150,000 per year. But yeah, that's new, and that's new and interesting. What's kind of interesting too is like what is missing from this, right? And so the electric vehicle credit, that goes away in September. So that's something that, Duncan, we might not be able to enjoy, right? The electrification proclamation, so that's not so great. Business interest, there's a lot of other stuff in the bill, but there basically is something for everybody except for the federal government, right? Because the giveaways here are relatively large, and we will.
I told you, you always say taxes have to go up. And what do I say? They never do.
I think you're right. And so just to play this out, this does add something in the neighborhood of $4.5 to $5 trillion. If we can pull up chart 2 in the background, Dan, yeah. So roughly $5.5 trillion. And just to finalize and finish here on Andrew's point, the blue line there, the extensions, that's what we're talking about. That's the extension of the old tax cuts. It's the largest single part of this bill, but I would agree with Andrew. Most people aren't going to feel it because their tax return this year is going to look a lot like their tax return last year.
I have 4 words when it comes to government spending and deficits. Nothing stops this train. Yeah. Let's be honest. we're not going to do anything about it until we have to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what that's going to be, but that's the reality.
I think as long as the economy continues to grow, Ben, that's really the whole game in my view.
Yeah.
And so that to me is the biggest argument. I'm picturing Duncan reading his Karl Marx with his friends, and they're sipping oat milk in the studio, and they're saying, we should just blow up the deficit and fund the people. Meanwhile, me and Ben are saying, hey, these are hardworking Americans. They deserve to drive their F-150s, or to Ben's point, Ford Mavericks, which is a great mid-sized pickup truck.
There you go.
And we should be lowering taxes, right? So hardworking Americans can enjoy the benefits of the greatest country on earth. There's a room for both arguments here, guys. But ultimately, I would agree with Ben. This is moving in one direction. As long as the economy keeps growing, I think it's all going to be okay. But TBD.
Yeah, but again, the biggest changes already happened 8 years ago or whatever. Like the changes from this one are relatively minor on the edges.
They are, but there are some benefits. The business expensing thing is to me a net positive. The enhanced child tax credit to me is a good thing. We're going to talk about Trump MAGA accounts here in a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some goodies. As long as you're not, I guess, reading Karl Marx, then you're screwed. Sorry.
I didn't know you were at MICA when I was there, Bill.
Let's say what?
Sorry, that's the art school I went to for grad school. It was an art school joke. Yeah.
Just
Too real.
Yeah.
Too real.
Gotcha.
All right,
Gotcha.
Tim in the
Hit it
comments
hard.
says that Mavericks aren't on a frame, so they're not a truck. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, like a Hyundai Santa Fe, that type of thing. Yeah, I see. Or Honda Ridgeline. I don't know. They look cool. RWM tax colleague Dan Baxter drives one, and I think it's awesome. I think it's a great truck.
Yes, I am a big proponent of smaller trucks. All right, next question.
The trucks are too damn big. right, Ben? Okay.
Good luck with that.
Okay, up next we got, this one is from Kevin. Other elements of the big beautiful bill got more attention, but I read that the bill creates quote-unquote Trump accounts that put $1,000 in an investment account for all newborns the next 4 years, and that parents and their employers can make after-tax contributions to these accounts for anyone under 18. Is this money for retirement, or can they use it for anything at age 18? Does your team understand the details of these accounts and how they impact 529s and Roth IRAs? Or do we need to wait a few years for Treasury to write implementing regulations before companies like Vanguard let you open one?
All right, I love this idea because I've been writing about it for years. Dan, throw up my blog post.
Do you think you got through to someone in government?
I sure hope so. I wrote about this in 2020. I think I talked about it even before. I wanted a Roth IRA for every baby in America because I wanted more people to get invested in the stock market. I want to give young people a leg up when they're entering the working world or having to pay for their first place or pay for a wedding or pay off student loans, whatever it is. So is it a perfect strategy? Probably not, but I think it's a good start. So Bill, why don't we dig into the details? This is what I know, and you can add on to them. Each baby born between now and 2028, I guess,
yes,
gets $1,000
correct
into an account.
Mm-hmm.
It's tax deferred. Mm-hmm. They can't touch the money until 18, and there's qualified expenses, right? And
mm-hmm.
they can get half of it at 18 and full access at age 25.
Something like that. Yeah, the last part I'm a little confused about, but everything else been spot on. I would just start though. What a great platform. Carlson, Hill, 2028. Guys, like what are we doing? We should be moving down to DC.
The other thing I'm going to add to it is when you go to an ATM or a drive-through, there's a shot clock. If you don't get out of the ATM or drive-through within 30 seconds with your order, they kick you out of line.
I'm with you. Also people paying by check at the supermarket. Like,
yes.
Oh my God, it's 2025. Anyway.
I'm laughing because Jason in the chat just said, congratulations, your baby now has $1,000 in Trump coin.
Yeah, they were titled MAGA accounts in the House bill, and I actually like that better, right? Because we could use that acronym.
I think they're I think it's $1,000 and it has to be in like a total stock market index.
US
I haven't
only,
heard
low cost index. And again, I'm a company man. I think it has to be 30 basis points or less. But yeah, can we chart on and we'll talk about these things. So Trump accounts, yes, $1,000 U.S. contribution, and then the parent or custodian could add up to $5,000 a year. So the other bullet point here, lower middle, this is an IRA structure. So it functions a lot like an IRA. You do not get the benefit of a tax deduction. The withdrawals or distributions on the back end do not come out tax-free. I'm going to get to that in a second. But in all intents and purposes, this thing functioned like an IRA in that the earnings that get absorbed into the account, they're all tax-deferred. You don't have to pay tax on interest, dividends, capital gains within the fund. It all kind of grows. U.S. only. Domestic index, and it needs to be low expense. I think it's 30 basis points is the number that sits on my head. Ben, to your point, beginning at age 18, you can make tax qualified withdrawals all the way out to age 30 when the account has to be empty. And tax qualified withdrawals generally I mean, for college, similar to a 529, but not the same. A business, starting a business, buying a home. And if those distributions are qualified, they are taxed at capital gains rates. So you do, unlike an IRA, you do get the benefit of capital gains structure within this tax-deferred account, kind of like a hybrid. Last point for me, however, any unqualified distributions, if you take out the money early, you are paying ordinary income on the gains. You get your basis back tax-free. You do have to pay tax on that $1,000 initial contribution, but any earnings would be taxed at ordinary income and then a 10% penalty if it's coming out early. That's what I understand from Trump accounts.
Right now, they said the parents can add more money each year, and also employers. I don't know how the employer piece would work.
Yeah, employer match up to $2,500.
They'd have to opt in somehow.
Correct. Yep. As an employee benefit. Yeah.
I guess we'll see how many of them actually do it.
Hey, we've had a lot of
how
Ritholtz
employers
babies.
can contribute to student loan debt.
Yes,
Is it a similar thing?
Similar concept. Yep, the employer would have to enter in. We have like 4 or 5 Ritholtz babies in the pipeline right now. So certainly, I'm fielding a lot of questions for you and my colleagues to fund these accounts.
So here's so the question. It's good. I think they want to have increased
Babies
fertility
in the pipeline.
Well,
they're in the oven. Let me put it that way.
we've had a lot of Ritholtz babies born over the years since I've
We have.
But
I've contributed 2 to the pile. Yeah.
hey, I got 3. So that's my question: is why can't they open this up to anyone who has kids under 18? Say anyone can, I would love if they did that, and I guess maybe they're trying to get people to have more kids.
You're preaching to the choir. Carlson, Hill, 2028. This could be
Do
a
you
platform.
think it makes sense for parents to add to these, or do you think a 529 is still a better deal? Obviously, if you have a kid, you take the 1,000 regardless. And
Yeah,
I think
totally.
I think it does happen automatically.
Correct. Yeah. If you do not open a Trump account in the child's first year, when you file your tax return the next year, it gets automatically opened and funded. Again, I'm not sure the process, but I do want to hit on a question though. It was like, hey, how do I open one of these? Is Vanguard doing them? No, they are not. Right. So the Treasury has not laid in. The IRS has not laid in. This is just passed Congress like last week. And so there needs to be a process by which the legislative, the agencies basically sit down and come up with the rules. And we'll probably have those, I'm guessing, September, October, November. I don't know for sure. But yeah, this is not something you can go run out to the store right now and open your Trump account.
Yeah. So anyway, I think it's good. Yeah, the details are still forthcoming, I guess, on how it's going to look and work. And yeah, but I want access. Give me an IRA for all my kids right now, right?
Yeah,
my daughter was talking this weekend.
Saving is good.
My daughter, we were talking, she can get a job at the local pool club when she's 14 years old. She's 11 now. At that point, I can open up a Roth for her, right?
Yeah,
because she's earning
once
income.
She has earned income. She needs earned income.
Yeah.
And again, I think this is just a supplement. I think it's good, like for anybody, right, to save for their child's future. Like I think that's a great thing. So anything that incentivizes that is good for me. I just wonder, guys, like how many new types of accounts are we going to add? Right? We have 403bs. We have 457s. We have 401ks.
Put them all together.
IRAs,
it seems like you should just
KEO.
have an account tied to your social security number.
And again, this is Carlson Sweet 2032. When you guys get run out of office after 4 years, we'll run again. What I really want is just one big freaking account, right? Just one big thing that's not tied to your employer that you can go out and fund. Ben's idea is let's just open up the TSP to the masses and let's fund it all the way up to the 414H contribution of $70,000 a year. If you want to defer on taxes, do it. If you want to fund a Roth, do it. You don't have to jump through all these hoops. That would be my pitch.
I agree. Put it in one bucket. Give everyone specific contribution limits on everything. And it's a big bucket.
And we do benefit, guys, from giving people advice on how to navigate this landmine. But it'd be better just to not have the landmine at all, right? And
yes.
I would present that as a use case.
And we get questions all the time from people about how do I save for my kids? And so this is one option for people who don't know what to do when they have a new kid.
I'd agree.
And this sounds like overall a good thing. So I'm not trying to be overly skeptical, but why do you think they did this? I mean, this seems like a free lunch, and supposedly there's no free lunch.
I don't know the legislative intent. I mean, just to save money for kids. The one thing that I think is a
incentivize
downside.
childbirth. Is that really the core?
That might be one. I don't know that anybody's going to.
It is kind of funny when our government does something that seems like it's actually reasonable. There's wait, what's
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, there's no way this is just out of
what are they doing something good for?
Yeah,
I am very excited for when this is an Ocasio-Cortez account in 2030 and it's funded with $20,000. That'd be great.
Go.
But
all right.
Yeah, I don't like the politicians flapping their name on these things. But I think anything that encourages saving is a good thing. And Ben, you brought up a point. 529s can be used for college, and that's about it. IRAs can be used for retirement. You can't touch them to your 60s. Something that's able to fund a business, something that's able for first-time home buyers. That's the idea, I think, and I'm all for it.
Yeah. We just don't want a Handmaid's Tale here, Duncan. There's no kids left anymore.
Yeah, I guess
Children of Men.
that's the idea.
Yeah,
right.
Alfonso Cuarón. Yeah, it's a great film.
Yeah.
Let's do another one.
If I was in the White House, 0% Swedish tariffs. Okay.
So for those meatballs, what, like Volvo, what are you, IKEA guy?
It's an overly joke.
remotely.
Okay.
They're in Sweden.
Okay.
Okay. Up next, we got one from John. I'd love to hear your take on a specific savings or net worth target by age for living comfortably without the usual hand-wavy advice like save X% of your income. That kind of guidance always feels vague to me since income can fluctuate so much from year to year.
You do see a lot of those. So Daniel, put the first one up. This one I found just from Googling, and this is Bank of America, and it gives you should have X% saved by this age. And I agree. Income changes from year to year, and income also gets you like different ways depending on where you live, right? If you live in Iowa and make the same amount of money as someone in New York City, that's going to go a little further in Iowa, obviously. You could also benchmark by the actual numbers. So do the next chart. This is from the Federal Reserve Household Survey. I think it's as of 2023. It shows by those same buckets how much the median net worth by age, so how much people actually have. So you could use that as your goalpost, I guess. The problem here is there's a really wide range around the median. So if you're trying to use this as like some sort of benchmark, I don't know. Chart off, please. Unfortunately, there really is no satisfactory answer here. Plus, like the whole idea of a comfortable life is subjective. It's based on how much you earn, where you live, how much you spend, how much you save, your goals, your taste for the finer things, right? It's always circumstantial. So I think there's never going to be a number for everyone. I will walk you through what I did, and Bill, I want to hear what you think. So every 3 or 4 years, I do an inventory. And I've done this since I started working 20 plus years ago. I did it when I had a negative net worth at my first job. Figure out like where I am financially. What do I owe? What do I own? What do I make? What's the savings rate? And then I project it out, right? And make some assumptions. Let's say my income grows by X% over the next few years. Let's say the savings rate looks like this, and let's say our investments grow by X. And I do some conservative estimates, right? Baseline assumption, conservative assumption, and aggressive assumption. I know these numbers are made up, but it's like I would rather be,
approximately right than precisely wrong.
You nailed it. That's what I was looking for. And then I map that out over, say, 3, 5, 10, 20 years. And I run some simple spreadsheets. I've been doing this since my first job, again. And a few years down the line, I compare, like, here's the assumptions, here's the estimates, what actually happened. And then you can figure out, well, there's some course corrections because my income was higher than I thought. Returns were average, but I saved less than I assumed, right? And you can figure out which ways, and sometimes that means maybe you need to save more or less, or make more or less, or dial risk up or down, or just do nothing. Our financial planners, like Bill, have a much more detailed software that does this for them much easier.
But it's basically what you described with an algorithm.
But it's simple. You're making estimates about an unknowable future. And so I think the idea is to compare yourself to yourself, not some made-up benchmarks or goalposts. Like your personal goalposts, I think, are the only ones that matter. And guess what? Those goalposts are constantly going to be moving. Where my thoughts now in my mid-40s are way different than when I was in my mid-20s and mid-30s, like of what I want in life and my goals. And so I think you just have to make those updates. What say you, Bill?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to think about it, Ben. It involves a little bit of spreadsheet math, but probably that benefit will compound through the years. I'll tell you, I took a pretty unsophisticated approach to this. When I was an Army lieutenant and I was making, I think, $21,000 my very first year after graduating in 2002, I just said, geez, I really want to hit the Roth IRA limit. I was into Roths back then just due to the compound benefits. And I think it was $3,000 or $4,000. And I was able to do that the first year. I was a bachelor, living around the luck. And then each year I've been fortunate enough to sit down and just about every year I've been able to add to that number every year. So starting with Roth, that's up to $7,000 this year, right? So every time it increases due to inflation, I get that in there. And then I got a job at Ritholtz Wealth Management in 2015. I thank Barry, Josh, Chris, Michael for giving me that opportunity. For the very first time, I had access to a 401k plan. I took full advantage of that. It took me 3 or 4 years of leveraging, but I was able to get the full match, the full maximum amount, somewhere around 2018, 2019 or so. And every year just by increasing a little bit. But ultimately, that's all automated in the background, and it didn't happen all at once. I think that's ultimately is the thing to do.
Yeah, you build up your goal, right? I agree. Don't think you're going to get there on day one going from the couch to running a marathon. It's a stair-step approach.
Yeah, because I've bought and sold houses in between that time. We've had 2 beautiful children. I've had cars. We've had emergencies. Stuff has happened all along the way. But it's that automation, Ben, that you've always talked about that for me is it. I don't think about it. It just happens, in the background, except for that once time in the year in January where I sit down to fund the stupid account. And then I try my best to add to it. And sometimes it's not the full amount. Sometimes I need to pull a little bit of money back because something happened. But I think that's the key. And ultimately, I'm on team never retire. You guys know this. Like, I can't fathom until I'm like 90 years old and I can no longer log into my freaking computer and to build GPT or whatever to like show up in the virtual internet, I don't think there's a time when I'm going to stop working. So for me, it's a time value of money question.
But also, ask you in 20 years, and maybe your mind has changed.
It's very possible. Yeah. But
Right?
like ultimately, savings gives you options. It gives you flexibility down
Yes.
the road.
Yep.
Very few people, if you talk to them over 50, 60 when they're in retirement, say, I wish I had saved less. It's possible, it can happen, but very often the concern is, I wish I got started sooner. I heard
Yeah, I
that
wish I
so
could have
many
saved more.
times.
Yep.
I heard that so many times. And the compound math is really easy to understand. $1,000 over at 7% over 10 years will double to 2,000, will double to 4,000, will double to 8,000. And that doubling, that compounding is so powerful. So even if it's $100 extra, if you can do that early in your 20s, it compounds for the rest of your life.
I agree. So Dave is holding my feet to the fire. He says, be specific, Ben. How have things changed for you over time? And the family one is the biggest piece, obviously. Thinking through, well, I'm going to have a family someday, and what could that mean versus what it actually means has completely changed my ideas of what I want out of life, what I want to do. And I've mentioned this before. A lot of that has meant that I want to spend more now, right? And not save as much. And I'm glad that I did start saving earlier. So I think so I think having children and a family has completely changed my goals for what I want out of life. And I'm already thinking, because as you know, Bill, the days are long, but the years are short. Like, what does life look like when my kids are out of the house? Because I know it's going to happen. I look at my daughter is 11 going on 12, and I think, oh my gosh, this happened so fast. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and she's in high school and going to college.
Yeah.
And so you think through those next periods. And so I think that's the biggest change in mindset is the family and how that completely changes your goals and realities. And it becomes a lot more about them than you in a lot of ways.
Yeah. For me, knowing the Roth thing, I can't advocate for it enough, but like having that thing funded meant I could pull money out. I can always get my basis back if something goes wrong. So like I never looked at overfunding that thing. That was never a problem because I could always reverse it. And like twice in my life I had to. And that's the way it had to be.
Yeah. James says he can walk around naked when the kids are out of the house.
It's amazing.
Sure.
I can't even imagine. Can you imagine the time? Like, golly, I have trouble fathoming. Again, I
was going to say, I think Bill's going to hike the Appalachian Trail.
I was thinking about it. It's funny. I follow this site, the Trek, and I think dudes post their updates every night. And yeah, that's definitely a dream of mine. So come with me. After we run for president and fail, we'll hike the trail. Yeah, let's do it.
I'm the only guy here without a beard, so
milk.
I can't do it.
Ben, you've had a good beard before. You can grow it.
That's true. It's not in the summer. All right. We got one more question.
All right, up next, last but not least, we got one from Frank. Due to having 3 kids and family income under $100,000, we pay little to no income tax. We can save just enough to max out both mine and my wife's Roth IRAs, $14,000 total, as well as enough to get the company match from our employer 401ks, about $6,000 total. How should the Roth versus traditional game be played when paying little to no income tax, as in my case? Should I be all Roth since my employer offers a Roth option? Am I overthinking it?
All right. Well, first of all, you say you have a lower income, so you don't pay taxes, and you're still maxing out the Roths, and so the savings rate here is still pretty high, right? So good on you for that.
I was going to say percentage-wise, that sounds quite high.
So this is interesting. So they're doing great. So run me through the numbers, Bill, that show how you can make $100K or less and have enough dependents and deductions that you pay no income taxes. Because I'd love to see that. Because this sounds to me like a hack, but obviously this is the reality.
Yeah, I want to welcome our listeners to some tax math. And I want to say this is Ben's fault. I did not want to do this. And Ben was like, we have to. So can we chart on? Can we chart on my tax map?
I made Bill do this for me.
I'm going to move quickly. If we have $100,000 of ordinary income in tax year 2025 for married filing joint, the standard deduction, Ben, this year is $30,000. You get a 30% deduction whopping right off top. So that makes Frank's taxable income $70K.
As you were saying before, that's higher than it was before, right?
Yes, correct. Yep. And it was increased due to the one big beautiful bill. Maybe something that people will notice, right? Per Andrew. Right. And so if we do the math on $70,000 of taxable income, that's partly in the 10% tax bracket, partly in 12. You add it all up, it's about $7,800 in tax. But Frank mentioned that he had 3 children. And if he has 3 kids that are under the age of 16, he gets $2,200 this year in child tax credits per child. And that reduces Frank's tax all the way to $1,200 estimated here this year, assuming nothing else is going on. So that means Frank's got a 1.2% effective tax rate on $100,000. Not a bad place to be in life. That's how the tax math works.
Right. So let's say they make 90. That's probably how they get to 0, something like that.
Yep.
I think the lesson of today's show is everyone needs to have like 6 kids, and you're not going to pay any taxes.
for humanity, we're below the replacement rate in the U.S. right now. I think we're at 1.6 children per woman. So like, yeah, we do need more children, please.
All right. So does it really matter what they do? So if they do a full traditional IRA, like, does that mean they're getting a tax refund? Like, what is the optimal route here? Does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, it could. I would argue the other way. So can we pull on chart 2? So if we take a look at the progressive tax bracket, right, this is what it looks like in 2025. Frank is all the way there on the left, right, at that 12% bracket. And Frank mentioned he has 3 kids. We were just talking about how our kids grow up, and they grow up very quickly. In 10 years, those child tax credits are going to go away. So his tax rate is certainly going to jump up to 22% just with inflation. Let's assume Frank gets some raises. Ben, are you making more money today in your 40s than you were in your 20s and 30s?
Yep.
I certainly am too. And as you move up that tax bracket, the tax rate goes higher, and you can see how the marginal rates work. The next dollar, once you, God willing, Frank's earning $240,000 in a couple of years, that is going to be taxed at 24% versus less than 1.2% effective today. And so I think Frank is doing exactly right. He's doing exactly what I would do. He's exactly doing what I did as a 21-year-old second lieutenant making $20,000 a year. And I was Roth, because I know when I get to 70 and I start pulling out my dollars from Social Security, and God willing, we have a pension, God willing, we have a 401k, in the future, tax rates are probably going to be higher. One of these days, Ben, I'll be right. One of these days, I'll be right. One of these days, I'll be right. However, I think the deficit will take care of that problem for us. But even if it isn't, even if tax rates stay static, I hope that Frank is going to be earning more money and his kids will be out of the house, so his tax rate will be higher.
Yeah. So maybe in the future, if income rises above some of these levels, then you do traditional.
Exactly. And I think that pivot point happens, Ben, for me, usually at the 24 to 32% tax bracket, depending on the client's circumstances. It might have state impacts, right? We don't know what state Frank's living. If it's in Florida, Texas, Nevada, Tennessee, North Dakota, or in Washington, another state that does not tax income, he might want to fully fund Roth because he might be planning to move to California when he retires. So there are a lot of variables, but Frank, you're playing the game right.
Dave wants to know if RWM has a pension fund. No, we do not.
We do not. No.
It'd be nice if we had a pension.
Defined contribution. I mean, that sounds great, which is just a 401k plan. No, maybe someday. Maybe Dave can help us set that up. That'd be great.
I have a hot take. Instead of trying to incentivize childbirth by giving everyone $1,000, how about fix the housing market? Because most people don't want to have kids until they can own their own home.
It's a great move.
That could be the next step. Listen, you have a child. We fund an account. Also, if you have 2 or more kids, we're gonna give you a 3% mortgage, right?
Yeah, I'm just speaking from experience as someone who's lived only rented. Like, who wants to have a kid when they could be told next month that they have to move out in 60 days?
Duncan, come to the Midwest.
Yeah,
get away from the coast.
There's a lot of land. Go west, young man.
That's the joke Michael in the chat made. He said it's all about where you live. Where'd it go? I lost it. Oh, all about where you live. Ben got a lake house and Michael got a mud room.
That's a good one. But yeah, go west. Go west, young man. Half the U.S. population lives east of the Mississippi in the Eastern time zone. That's just the way this works. There's a lot of land out west. But I'm a YIMBY, guys. Like, let's build some houses. Take a look at rents in the city of Austin over the last 10 years and what's happened there. As a great case study, what happens when you unleash the free market to do the job.
If we're doing the Ben Carlson platform, when I already got my Roth IRA for babies, kind of, not a Roth, but it's an IRA for babies. I've been writing a lot about we need to build more housing for years and years and years. So hopefully that's the next step of the process. Thanks to everyone in the live chat today. It was bumping today. People were asking questions, making jokes. Thanks to Bill for coming on, as always, to help with our text questions, as usual. Thanks to Duncan, all the team, the production team. Email us, askthecompoundshow@gmail.com with your questions. Leave a question on YouTube, in the live chat, in the comments. Subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time.
See you, everyone.
Duncan, we need a shave.